Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen
Hello and welcome to a new video. This video will be about the LS Touch from Jung. In 5 chapters, I would like to show you how to use the LS Touch. The chapters are divided as follows. Chapter 1 contains the topic of general operation. In Chapter 2, we will look at the favorites. Chapter 3 is about the timers that the LS Touch can operate. Chapter 4 deals with the screensaver and standby functionality. And last but not least, we'll take a look at password protection in Chapter 5. Before we lose a lot of time, let's take a closer look at the LS Touch together.
The LS Touch
has a proximity sensor in the lower right part. So when you approach your LS Touch, it automatically switches to the favorites page. However, we will have a look at this in Chapter 2 later on. To enter the menu, simply swipe your finger from the bottom to the top. Now we are in the menu. Here, the areas to be operated are displayed. On the top left is the living room, dining area with connected kitchen, the shading, the scenes, in this case, the icon for the value transmitter here on the middle right, and the gear wheel symbol for the settings of the LS Touch. So here it is no longer about a room, but via this icon, you can correct the settings of your LS Touch. In the middle at the bottom are the time switches, which we will also look at later. And at the bottom right is the cleaning function. So if you want to clean the surface of your LS Touch, it is sufficient to press the icon, and then you have 30 seconds to clean without triggering a function. Now I would like to look into the living room with you. Here we find the different functions available in the living room. First of all, we see the text living room up here, in order to know what room we want to operate at the moment. And symbolically here are also already indicated various functions that we can now just use in the living room. I'd like to go through these with you one by one, and we'll start here at the top in the middle. In this case, we have a switchable light, the ceiling spots in the living area on the right. In order to switch on the light now, it is sufficient to simply tap the symbol here, and the light is now switched on or off again. Alternatively, you can also use the plus key to switch on the light or the minus key to switch it off again. To return to the area page, you simply press the arrow button here up at the top. Now let's take a look up here on the right. As you can see, here we have an advanced control element. This symbol represents a dimmable light, so we can make this lighting brighter or darker in the central living area. If you hold down the plus button for a long time, you can take big steps. If one keeps the minus button pressed for a long time, then you can also go back in big steps again. This way, you can dim the light brighter or darker. Or by briefly pressing the plus button, you can change the brightness in fine steps. Or you can grab the sphere with your finger and pull the brightness up to 79%, such as here in this case. In exactly the same way, it would also be conceivable that you simply tap your fingers in a free area and thus dim to 12% of the brightness, for example. If you want to change the brightness to 15%, for example, you can do this by pressing the plus 3 times. Next, I go to an RGB color light, but first I would like to draw your attention to the 3 dots below. The LS Touch would like to point out that the color control consists of a total of 3 detail pages. You can see the first detail page here, already in the overview. Now it is about defining the brightness of the light, and as just shown, you can adjust the brightness with the plus and minus keys. However, you can also touch the sphere and drag it to the desired value or jump to it, for example, to make a fine adjustment afterwards by briefly pressing the plus. The next detail page is about defining the color of the RGB color light. Here we can work in the operation with plus and minus as well, or just jump directly to the color blue or green, for example. By briefly pressing the plus button, you can select the color even more precisely. The third detail page is about saturation. Here you can set the intensity of your selected color. I now grab the sphere and set the saturation to 50%, or I jump to 14% and correct to 15% by pressing the plus. Next function, in this case, a tunable white light. Here we have two detail pages. The first page again refers to the topic of brightness. I don't think I'm telling you anything new here. All the functions and control options I have just shown you are of course also available here. The first detail page is about defining the brightness. On the second detail page, we can define the color temperature of your tunable white light. In this example, from 600 Kelvin to 11,000 Kelvin. Again, you can directly select the color temperature this way, by sliding the sphere to the corresponding value, or making a fine adjustment or even big jumps, just as you have seen several times now. With the music clef, we reach a function involving multimedia control. If you also have a sound box in your K&X smart home, it is possible to turn on the speaker via the LS Touch. Moreover, you can see the corresponding title information in the display of your LS Touch. Here, we also have a second detail page where we can define the volume. As usual with all the same elements, plus, minus, jump, drag. Everything you need to define the volume. At the bottom left, we have the subject of shading, in this case, the patio door. Also here a second detail page. The first detail page is about the height of the blinds. In principle, the handling of the operation is the same as a dimmable light, except that here it is not about the brightness, but the height of the blinds. Currently 50%, now 85%. As you can also see by the graph, that would already be very deep shading. The second detail page is about the slat position. That is, we can also ensure here that we have an almost straight position of the slat. Of course, we can adjust this to exactly 50% by briefly pressing minus. We can also set direct positions. And now you already know how to operate blinds with slats. The next example is about a simple shutter, where we don't have the possibility to define the inclination of the slat. That's why you don't see a second detail page here. So it's only about the shutter height that we can adjust accordingly. The last element I would like to show you in this room is the heating. As you can see, there is a second detail page here as well, which we will get to in a moment. We have a small degree indication that shows you the current temperature in the room, so 23.7 degrees in this case. 23.0 degrees is now the set target temperature, and as you can certainly imagine, you can use the sphere to set this desired temperature. Fine-tune it with the plus key or make larger jumps by pressing it for a longer time. And as you can see here, the heating now starts to work. Accordingly, this icon pops up to symbolize that the room starts to heat up. The more dashes are displayed, the more heat the room is currently requesting. Here below, you have the possibility to change the operating mode, that is to night mode, standby mode, or back to comfort mode. The second detail page now also shows the setting of a possible ventilation. Below, you see an indication to other area pages. So we also have the option to scroll through the different areas. Now we are in the dining room, for example. If we swipe further, we come to the kitchen. It would also be conceivable to swipe from the bottom to the top in order to go back to the menu, and then select here to a specific room, such as the kitchen, for example. The symbol in the middle stands for scenes. You can directly call up a scene via the LS Touch by simply pressing the corresponding symbol. In this case, the scene absent is active now. and accordingly all elements contained in this scene will be executed. And here, we also have the value transmitter. Here, for example, it is a question of specifying the brightness value for a programmed automatic sun protection. So you can tell your weather station here from which brightness the automatic shading should be activated. For sure, you can make the appropriate corrections, as you have already seen several times in this video before. Now I would like to introduce you to the functionality of your favorites pages. As you can see, here we have 4 functions on your first favorites page, and by the 3 dots, you can already see that we have 2 more pages to choose from. That's why I'm now wiping with you from right to left. In here we have a second favorites page, where only 2 functions have been stored. A third page, where only 1 function has been stored, and if you continue wiping, the whole thing starts again from the beginning. Now to turn this function on or off directly, you only need to press the icon. In this way you can very quickly operate your favorites. If you press an icon for a longer time, you will get to the respective detail display, in this case, the shading of the patio door. The great thing about LS Touch is that you can customize these favorites completely on your own. To do this, please switch to the menu, go to the settings, and find the favorites again. Now you can see the already presented 3 favorites pages. Together with you, I now delete the third favorites page, confirm this, and create a new one right away. I first decide on a page layout. I have the possibility to put a single function on this third favorites page, a twofold function, a triple in the horizontal, a triple in the vertical, or even a quadruple. I decide now with you for a twofold representation and confirm this here on the top right. Now I want to put certain functions on these 2 keys. To do this, briefly hold your finger on the icon for a moment, and you will now be shown the selection of all its functions in a list here. I decide now for the shading kitchen left. Confirm this, and define now here on the right side the shading kitchen right. I confirm the whole selection and now show you what it looks like when we switch back to the favorites display. I swipe down from the top. Here's our first favorites page, the second, and the favorites page number 3 that we have just created together. Where with a single press of the icon, I can now move the blinds down, or by pressing for a long time, I can also access the respective detail page. In this chapter, I would like to take a look at the subject of timers together with you. The LS Touch can manage a maximum of 8 timers, and 4 switching times are available for each timer. What I mean by this will certainly be clearer in a moment if we take a look together at an example. To define a timer, please switch to the icon with the clock in the menu. 3 timers are already created here. With the plus, you can define another timer. The LS Touch lists all possible functions for you. With the arrow up-down button, you have the possibility to scroll. In our case, we choose the ceiling spot's living area left and confirm this. To define switching times now, simply hold down the button for a moment. Here are the 4 switching times. The first one is also defined by holding your finger on it a little longer. Now you can define for the ceiling spot's living area left at what time what should happen here. We define the time. Next, you also have the option to exclude individual days. I take away Wednesday, as you can see on the display. Confirm, and now the LS Touch wants to know what should be done at 12 o'clock. I tell the device now, please turn on the light by pressing the icon. Afterwards, I save the whole setting. I go to the second switching time and tell the LS Touch to switch off the light again at 12:15. I exclude Wednesday again. Confirm that, and now we see the symbol for turn off. This is the symbol for turn on, and this is the symbol for turn off. We want the light to turn off again at 12:15, and I save the whole setting. Now the two switching times are defined, but not activated yet. On the right-hand side, you see this small white circle, and only if this is filled is the switching time activated. The same applies to the timer. That means you can also set up several timers, but then leave them inactive. So now, in this case, nothing will happen at 12 o'clock because the timer is not activated. Only when activating the timer will the defined function be executed. Now, we will go back to details in order to have a look at the third switching time. I would like to show you the following. The LS Touch can not only run a command at fixed times, but we also have the possibility to define the sunrise as a time switching point. Moreover, we can define via these two times here that the function should not be triggered before or after a certain time. If you press Astro again, the symbol changes to the sunset. And here, you also have the possibility to define when the command should run at the earliest or at the latest. If you press Astro one more time, you even have a random function on board that means, in principle, a presence simulation. Now the LS Touch decides independently at what time it should operate. In this case, the ceiling spot's living area left. I also have to tell the LS Touch to please switch the light on, and accordingly, it would look as if someone in the house would turn on and off the light, although you are on vacation at this time. This third switching time is not activated yet. Therefore, I press on here to ensure it's active. Now I would like to show you something briefly. I'll switch back to the menu and go into the living room, where exactly this ceiling spot is located. As you can see here, a small clock is displayed below. This is a little reminder for you to let you easily know that with this light there is a timer, which ensures that this light is operated at certain times, as you have just programmed it. To delete, we go back to the menu in the timers. We hold our finger on it again for a moment, and can then decide down here via the trash can to delete this whole timer again.
In
this chapter, I would like to show you the screensaver or standby mode. The LS Touch will activate the screensaver by itself after a certain period of non-use. After a further period of non-use, it lapses into standby mode. Standby mode means that the LS Touch first switches to dark. Now you can see the screensaver mode here. In this case, the Jung logo is displayed. After a further time, and in standby mode, it switches itself off. Of course, your presence is detected by the proximity sensor, and the favorites page is displayed again for the time being. If you now want to change something in the screensaver, please go to the menu, go to the settings, and there to the screensaver, because you have several variants to choose from for the screensaver. One of them is the Jung logo you just saw. However, you can also have the time displayed in large, or you can display the time together with the date, or the time, the desired temperature, and current temperature of a corresponding room in your house, or simply the outside temperature together with the time. Then there is a black image here, first of all, where you have the choice to fade in a color, which could then, for example, coincide with the wall color, or just as already seen, the Jung logo. I confirm that via the check. Here you can also correct the run on time. So for example, how long should the screensaver take until it activates? You can set this to 1 minute here, for example. The same thing can be set in the standby mode. For example, 1 minute, which means the screensaver comes on 1 minute after inactivity, and after another minute, the LS Touch switches to standby mode.
schaltet dann der LS Touch in den Standby-Modus. Im letzten Kapitel soll
The
es
last
um das Thema
chapter
Passwort
will deal with the topic of password protection. The LS Touch is able to protect certain functions or pages via a password.
zu schützen.
Thus, it is guaranteed that only those persons who have the password are able to adjust something.
Das Passwort verfügen.
In this case, the password is a 4-digit combination of numbers. In the Settings section, you will find the password protection. And here you can define the password in the first step. In my case, I choose 1, 2, 3, 4. The second step is to now apply this password to these page functions. If I decide to password protect the whole device and it goes into the screensaver or standby mode, I can only wake it up if I have the password. And now I have the possibility to define this exactly. Who can operate what? In this case, for example, the use of favorites would now be possible for everyone because there is no password request here. But if the user wants to switch to the menu, the settings, switching times, or to the individual rooms, he would then be prompted to insert the password. So in this constellation, everyone can use the favorites, but not the other settings. As long as you are still in active mode, the password protection will not be applied. However, I would like to show you how it looks like when this password protection is active. This means we need to be patient and wait until the lock is activated, either via the screensaver mode or the standby mode. It would also be conceivable to disconnect the device in order to activate the password protection. In my case, I have decided to use the cleaning function, so we need to wait a bit further. And after that, only the favorites should be available, and all the other functions should be password protected. Favorites are now visible and also active and controllable. But if you now switch to the menu, you will be asked to enter your password, 1, 2, 3, 4, and confirm. And now you should have the full range of functions again.
I
I hope this tutorial will support you in using your LS Touch from Jung. I would be pleased if we meet again for another video. Now enjoy the use of your LS Touch, and we'll see you soon again.